Captain Jake Morrison pressed his face against the cold glass of the observation deck and watched Earth spin slowly below him. The planet looked wrong now. Where blue oceans used to sparkle, dark green clouds swirled like poison soup. The white ice caps had turned yellow. Even from space, he could see the death spreading across the world he used to call home. Jake had been in space for 6 months now, but he still wasn't used to seeing Earth like this. Every morning he woke up hoping it was all a bad dream. Every morning he looked out the window and saw the same dying world turning beneath his ship. The research vessel Harmony floated in orbit like a metal island in the Black Sea of space. Jake commanded a crew of 200 scientists, engineers, and soldiers. They were supposed to be studying the alien attack on Earth. Instead, they were watching their home planet die. Behind him, the door slid open with a soft hiss. Dr. Lisa Chun walked in carrying a tablet computer and a cup of coffee that smelled like burnt metal. The ship's food recycler had been acting up again, but nobody complained anymore. There were bigger problems to worry about. The atmospheric readings are getting worse, Lisa said without looking up from her tablet. She was a small woman with short black hair and tired eyes behind thick glasses. For the past month, she had been working 18 hours a day trying to understand the aliens who had attacked Earth. How much worse? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. The toxin levels increased by 12% overnight. At this rate, the air will be completely unbreathable in 3 weeks. Lisa sat down in one of the observation chairs and rubbed her eyes. We need to start the final evacuation now. Jake nodded, but didn't turn away from the window. Down there, millions of people were still alive, hiding in underground shelters and sealed buildings. The evacuation ships could only carry so many at a time, even if they worked around the clock. They couldn't save everyone. There's something else, Lisa said. Her voice was different now, excited in a way Jake hadn't heard in months. I found something in the alien data we collected. Jake finally turned around. Lisa was staring at her tablet with the same look she used to get when she made a big discovery. In her lab back on Earth. What kind of something? The aliens who did this, the ones our intelligence calls the Vorthic, they're not just mindless killers. They have a weakness. Lisa stood up and walked to the wall screen. She pressed some buttons and a 3-dimensional image appeared in the air between them. The image showed a brain, but not a human brain. This one was larger and had strange twisted sections that pulsed with different colors. This is a Vorthic. Neural scan from one of the ships we shot down last month. Look at these areas here. She pointed to sections that glowed bright blue. I don't understand alien brains, Jake said. These sections control memory and emotion. In humans, they're separate systems. But in the Vorthic, they're connected in a way I've never seen before. When one activates, it forces the other to activate too. Jake crossed his arms. What does that mean for us? Lisa smiled for the first time in weeks. It means they can't control their emotions when their memories are triggered. And I know what triggers Vorthic memories. She pressed another button, and sound filled the room. It was music, a piano playing a slow, sad melody that made Jake think of rain on windows and people saying goodbye. The alien brain on the screen began to pulse faster, the blue sections lighting up like fireworks. Music does this to them? Jake asked. Not just any music. Specific harmonic frequencies. The kind that humans naturally create when we're feeling strong emotions. When a Vorthic hears our music, it forces them to remember things they've tried to forget. Jake looked back at Earth, then at the brain scan. An idea was forming in his mind, but it was crazy. How many Vorthic ships are out there? Intelligence estimates 3,000, maybe more. They're spread across the galaxy, destroying every human colony they can find. Lisa paused. Jake, what are you thinking? Before Jake could answer, his communication device beeped. A voice came through the speaker, scratchy with static but clearly human. This is Danny Rodriguez broadcasting from New York City. Is anyone out there still listening? Jake and Lisa looked at each other. They had been monitoring Earth's communication channels for weeks, but most had gone silent as the evacuation proceeded. Jake pressed the button to respond. "This is Captain Morrison. Aboard the Harmony. We're listening, Danny. What's your status down there?" "I'm alive, Captain. Still got my piano. Still got my music. Figured somebody should keep playing until the lights go out for good." Jake had heard Danny's broadcast before. The man was a street musician who had refused to evacuate with the others. For the past month, he had been playing piano in the abandoned streets of New York, streaming his music to anyone who would listen. His concerts had become famous among the scattered. Human survivors. "Danny, you need to get to an evacuation point. The air is getting more toxic every day." "I know, Captain, but this is my home. These are my streets. If I'm going to die, I want to die doing what I love." Danny's voice was calm, like he had made peace with his decision. "Besides, music is all I know how to do. Down here, playing. For empty buildings and poison sky, it feels like the most honest thing I've ever done." Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. "Jake, he's perfect. Perfect for what?" "For our plan. We need someone who can play with real emotion. Someone who understands what it means to lose everything and still find beauty in the world. Danny is playing his heart out down there because he knows it might be the last music Earth ever hears." Jake looked at the brain scan again, then at the image of Earth turning slowly in the darkness. 3,000 alien ships were out there, destroying human worlds one by one. The Vorthik thought they had already won. Maybe it was time to prove them wrong. "Danny," Jake said into the communicator, "how would you like to play the most important concert of your life?" "What do you mean, Captain?" Jake looked at Lisa, who nodded encouragingly. "I mean, how would you like to save the human race with your music?" There was a long pause. Then Danny laughed, a sound full of sadness and hope mixed together. "Captain, I've been playing on street corners for tips my whole life. If you're telling me my piano might actually matter for something, then I'm interested." "We're coming to get you, Danny. Pack your piano." "Already packed, Captain. Been ready to go since." This whole thing started. Just been waiting for the right reason to leave. Jake closed the communication channel and turned to Lisa. "How crazy is this plan?" "Completely insane," Lisa said. "But it's the only chance we have." Outside the window, Earth continued its slow dance in the darkness, dying a little more with each passing hour. But for the first time in months, Jake felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt hope. Dr. Lisa Chin had not slept in 36 hours. Her lab on the Harmony looked like a storm had hit it. Computer screens glowed in the darkness, showing alien brain scans and sound wave patterns. Empty coffee cups sat on every surface and crumpled. Papers covered the floor. Lisa stared at the data scrolling across her main screen. For weeks, she had been studying the Vorthik neural tissue they had recovered from crashed alien ships. Every test had shown the same impossible result. The alien brains were wired completely wrong, at least by human standards. "Computer, run." "The memory activation sequence again," she said. The screen filled with a three-dimensional model of a Vorthik brain. Lisa played a recording of Danny's piano music from Earth. Immediately, the memory centers of the alien brain lit up like a Christmas tree. But it wasn't just memory. The emotional centers activated too, flooding the brain with feelings the Vorthik had tried to bury. "Amazing," whispered Dr. Kevin Park, Lisa's research partner. He was a young man with messy brown hair who lived on energy drinks and had not changed his clothes in 3 days. "It's like the music forces them to feel everything at once." Lisa nodded. "Look at this section here." She pointed to a part of the brain that pulsed with angry red light. "This is where they store traumatic memories. In humans, we can suppress. These memories lock them away. But when Vorthik hear our music, all those locked doors swing open at once." Kevin leaned closer to the screen. "What kind of traumatic memories?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." Lisa pulled up another file. I've been analyzing the brain chemistry changes when the music plays. The chemical signatures match what we see in humans experiencing severe guilt and grief. Guilt about what? Before Lisa could answer, her computer beeped with an incoming message. The screen showed Admiral Robert Hayes, the commander of Human Defense Forces. His face looked older. Then Lisa remembered, with new lines around his eyes and gray in his hair. Dr. Chun, I need your latest report on the Vortic weakness. We just received intelligence that changes everything. Lisa straightened up. What kind of intelligence, Admiral? We intercepted Vortic communications from their main fleet. They're not just attacking human colonies randomly. They're following a specific pattern, a systematic genocide protocol. They plan to eliminate every human settlement in the galaxy within 6 months. Kevin's face went pale. How many ships? Our best estimate is 4,000 Vorthat vessels spread across 12 sectors. They've been doing this for a long time, Dr. Chun. Humans aren't their first target. Lisa felt cold. What do you mean? Admiral Hayes touched something on his screen, and new images appeared. They showed dead worlds, planets covered in the same green poison clouds that now surrounded Earth. These are planets the Vortic attacked. In the past 50 years, 17 different species, all extinct now. The Vortic are professional planet killers. But why? Kevin asked. We don't know. What we do know is that in 6 months, there won't be a single human left alive in the galaxy unless we find a way to stop them. The Admiral leaned forward. Tell me about this music weapon, Dr. Chun. Lisa took a deep breath. It's not exactly a weapon, Admiral. It's more like a key that unlocks something the Vortic have been trying to hide from themselves. She shared her screen with the Admiral, showing him the brain scans. When Vortic hear human music, especially music played with strong emotion, it triggers massive memory recall, but not happy memories. The brain chemistry suggests they're remembering loss, grief, things they regret. You think they feel guilty about the worlds they've destroyed? I think they used to feel guilty. I think they found a way to suppress those feelings, to make themselves into perfect killing machines. But our music breaks through that suppression. Admiral. Hayes was quiet for a moment. How long does the effect last? Based on our tests, anywhere from 20 minutes to several hours, depending on the intensity of the music and the emotional content. During that time, the Vortic are completely unable to function as soldiers. They're too busy experiencing emotions they've been running from for decades. Kevin suddenly sat up straight. Lisa, what if that's why they're so good at destroying worlds? What if they've been doing this so long that they have to keep moving, keep killing, to avoid dealing with what they've done? Lisa stared at him, like an addiction. They can't stop because stopping means facing the guilt. And our music forces them to face it all at once, Admiral Hayes said. Dr. Chun, how will we weaponize this discovery? We'd need to broadcast human music on specific frequencies directly into their ships. The music would have to be played live, with real emotion behind it. Recorded music doesn't have the same effect. What kind of range are we talking about? Lisa checked her calculations. If we modify our communication arrays, we could affect ships within a light-minute radius. But, Admiral, we'd need a musician who understands what they're playing, someone who can put real feeling into the music. What about this Danny Rodriguez that Captain Morrison mentioned? Lisa nodded. He's perfect. His broadcasts from Earth have been incredibly powerful. When he plays, you can hear everything he's feeling. The loss, the hope, the determination to keep making beauty, even as the world ends around him. Admiral Hayes rubbed his chin. The main Vortic fleet is currently attacking the colonies around Centauri. If we could get there with this music weapon, we might be able to disable their entire force. There's one problem, Kevin said. Danny is still on Earth. The atmosphere down there is getting more toxic every hour. We might not be able to extract him safely. Captain Morrison is already planning a rescue mission, Lisa said. But, Admiral, there's something else you need to know. The Vorthok aren't just random killers. I've been analyzing the pattern of their attacks, and I think I understand what they're running from. She pulled up a star map showing the destroyed worlds. Look at this. Every planet they've attacked had one thing in common. They all had highly developed art forms, especially music. The Vorthok aren't just destroying civilizations. They're destroying anything that might make them remember what they used to be. Admiral Hayes leaned back in his chair. What do you think they used to be? I think they used to be like us. I think they used to create music and art and beauty. And I think something happened that made them destroy their own culture, their own capacity for joy. Now they can't stand to see it in others. The Admiral was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Dr. Chun, if you're right, then this isn't just about saving humanity. This might be about saving the Vorthok too. From what? From themselves. Lisa looked at the brain scans again, at the patterns of pain and suppressed memory. Admiral, what if the reason they can't stop killing is because they're trying to kill the part of themselves that once loved music? Then maybe, Admiral Hayes said slowly, maybe our music can remind them who they used to be. The communication ended, leaving Lisa and Kevin alone in the lab. Outside the small window, Earth continued its slow death spiral. But now Lisa understood something that changed everything. The Vorthok weren't monsters. They were victims of their own success, trapped in a cycle of destruction they couldn't escape. And somewhere down on that dying planet, a street musician named Danny Rodriguez held the key to setting both species free. The war room aboard the Harmony buzzed with activity. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the center of a holographic star map that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Vorthok fleet positions. Blue dots showed human colonies. Every few minutes, another blue dot would turn gray, meaning another human world had gone silent. Admiral Hayes appeared on the main screen, his face grim. The situation is worse than we thought. The Vorthok just destroyed the Mars colony. 3 million people. Gone in 6 hours. Jake clenched his fists. Mars had been humanity's first major colony outside Earth. His sister had lived there with her family. Now they were all dead, turned to ash by alien weapons. How long before they reached the other colonies? Asked Colonel Betty Davis, the Harmony's military commander. She was a tough woman with short red hair and scars on her hands from old battles. 2 weeks, maybe less. The fleet attacking the Centauri system has 40 ships. Our defense forces there have 12. Admiral Hayes paused. Captain Morrison, we need to implement Dr. Ching's music plan immediately. Lisa stepped forward. She looked exhausted but determined. Admiral, we finished the calculations. If we can modify the Harmony's communication array, we can broadcast Danny's music to every Vorthok ship within a light minute. But the musician has to be aboard our ship. The signal won't work if we try to relay it from Earth. What about extracting Danny Rodriguez? Jake asked. That's the problem, said Lieutenant Ryan Cooper, the ship's communications officer. He was a young man with nervous energy who always spoke too fast. Earth's atmosphere is getting worse by the hour. The toxic levels are now at 90% lethal. Even with environmental suits, a surface mission would be extremely dangerous. Jake studied the tactical display showing Earth's surface. Most of the major cities were covered in green poison clouds. But there were still pockets of cleaner air, especially in underground areas. Where exactly is Danny broadcasting from? The old subway tunnels under Times Square, Ryan said. He set up some kind of shelter down there. But Captain, the air even in the tunnels won't be breathable for much longer. Admiral Hayes leaned forward on the screen. Captain, I'm authorizing you to take whatever risks necessary to extract this musician. He might be our only hope. Jake nodded. Colonel Davis, prepare a rescue team. We go down in 4 hours. I'm coming with you, Lisa said. Jake shook his head. Too dangerous. We need you alive to run the music weapon. You need me there to explain the plan to Danny. He has to understand what he's really doing, not just follow orders. The music only works if he puts real emotion into it. Jake looked at Lisa's determined face and realized she was right. Fine, but you follow my orders down there. 2 hours later, Jake stood in the Harmony shuttle bay, watching his team prepare. For the mission, Colonel Davis checked weapons and environmental suits. Lisa packed her scientific equipment. Dr. Kevin Park loaded medical supplies in case Danny was injured or sick. Captain, Ryan's voice came through the intercom, I'm picking up Danny's broadcast right now. You might want to hear this. Jake pressed his communication device. Danny's voice filled the shuttle bay, accompanied by the soft sound of piano keys. This is Danny Rodriguez, broadcasting from the subway tunnels of New York City. Day 43 of the end of the world. Danny's voice was calm, but Jake could hear the exhaustion underneath. I know most of you have evacuated by now. I know the air up there is poison, and the sky is the wrong color. But I'm still here, still playing, because someone needs to witness this. The piano music was beautiful and heartbreaking. Danny played a melody that sounded like goodbye, like the last song ever written. I've been thinking about everyone I've lost, Danny continued. My parents, my friends, everyone who used to stop and listen when I played on the street corners. They're all gone now, evacuated to other worlds or worse. But their memory lives in this music. Every note I play carries a piece of everyone I've loved. Lisa wiped tears from her eyes. Jake, he's perfect for this. He already understands what we're asking him to do. The shuttle launched from the Harmony and descended through Earth's poisoned atmosphere. Jake watched through the window as they passed through layers of green clouds. The air looked thick and oily, like soup made from death. Environmental readings are off the charts, Kevin reported. Toxin levels at 95% lethal. Our suits will protect us for maybe 2 hours. They landed in Central Park, or what used to be Central Park. The trees were all dead, twisted black shapes reaching toward a sky the color of old bruises. Jake led his team to the empty streets of Manhattan. Cars sat abandoned where their drivers had left them weeks ago. Store windows were covered with green slime. This way, Colonel Davis said, checking her navigation device. The subway entrance is 6 blocks north. They moved quickly through the dead city. Their environmental suits made breathing possible, but Jake could still smell the poison seeping through the filters. It smelled like burnt metal and rotting flowers. The subway entrance was a dark hole in the ground. Jake turned on his flashlight and led the team down the broken escalator. The tunnels were quieter than the surface, but the air was just as bad. I'm picking up the music, Ryan said through the radio. 200 meters ahead. They followed the sound through the dark tunnels. Their flashlights cast strange shadows on the tiled walls. Water dripped from broken pipes, but Jake suspected it wasn't water anymore. Finally, they reached the maintenance room where warm light spilled through an open door. Inside, Jake saw something that made him stop and stare. Danny Rodriguez sat at an old upright piano, his fingers moving across the keys like he was painting with sound. He was a thin man with long brown hair and kind eyes. Around him, he had created a small sanctuary. Battery-powered lights hung from the ceiling. Canned food sat stacked on metal shelves. A small bed was pushed against one wall, but what struck Jake most was the music. Even through the environmental suit's audio system, Danny's playing was incredibly beautiful. Each note seemed to carry the weight of everything humanity had lost. Danny looked up when they entered. He smiled, but didn't stop playing. Captain Morrison, I presume? That's right. We're here to get you out. Danny's hands never paused on the keys. I figured you would come eventually. Though I have to admit, I wasn't sure I'd still be alive. When you got here, Lisa stepped forward. Danny, we need to explain what we're asking you to do. This isn't just about playing music. You might be able to save every human colony in the galaxy. Danny finished the song he was playing and turned to face them. Dr. Chun, right. I heard your voice on the radio. You're the one who figured out that music affects the aliens. That's right. But Danny, It's not just any music. It has to be played with real emotion, real feeling. The aliens respond to the humanity in the music, not just the sound. Danny stood up and walked to a small window that looked up at street level. Through the glass, they could see the green poison clouds swirling above. Dr. Chun, I've been playing my heart out in these tunnels for over a month. Every song has been about loss, about love, about the people I'll never see again. If that's what you need, then I've been preparing for this my whole life. Jake felt a surge of hope. Danny, are you ready to leave? We don't have much time. Danny looked around his small sanctuary one last time. He picked up a small bag that had been sitting beside the piano. I packed days ago, Captain. I've been waiting for you to give me a reason to go. What about your piano? Lisa asked. Danny smiled sadly. That old thing? It's been with me for 15 years, through good times and bad. But it's too big for your shuttle, isn't it? Jake nodded. We have a piano aboard the Harmony. A better one. Then let's go save the galaxy, Danny said. Though I have to warn you, I've never played for an audience of 4,000 alien ships before. As they left the dead tunnels and climbed back toward the poisoned surface, Jake realized that everything had changed. They weren't just running from the Vorthic anymore. They were going to fight back with the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. The ability to make others feel what it meant to be human. Danny Rodriguez stood in the music room aboard the Harmony, staring at the most beautiful piano he had ever seen. It was a black grand piano that gleamed under the soft lights. The keys were perfect white and black rectangles that seemed to glow with their own inner light. It's a Steinway Model D, said Lieutenant Ryan Cooper, who had led Danny to the room. The Admiral had it brought aboard specifically for this mission. It's worth more than most people make in 10 years. Danny ran, his fingers along the piano's smooth surface. After playing on his old upright piano in the subway tunnels, this felt like touching a piece of heaven. I've dreamed of playing an instrument like this my whole life. Well, now you get to play it to save the galaxy, Dr. Lisa Chun said as she entered the room carrying a tablet and several cables. Behind her came Dr. Kevin Park and 2 engineers. Danny hadn't met yet. Danny sat down at the piano bench and pressed one key. The sound that came out was perfect, pure, and clear like crystal bells. He played a simple scale and smiled. This is incredible. I can feel every note in my chest. Lisa set up her equipment around the piano. Danny, we need to explain exactly how this is going to work. The piano will be connected to our ship's communication array. When you play, your music will be broadcast on specific frequencies that affect Vorthic brain chemistry. How many aliens will hear it? Danny asked. Kevin checked his tablet. Based on our current intelligence, there are approximately 40 Vorthic ships in the Centauri system. Each ship has between 200 and 500 crew members. So you'll be playing for about 15,000 aliens. Danny's hands froze above the keys. 15,000? Don't think about the numbers, Lisa said gently. Think about what you've always done. You play music that makes people feel something. That's all we're asking you to do now. Danny nodded, but his face was pale. Dr. Chun, what happens to the aliens when they hear my music? Do they die? Lisa sat down in a chair next to the piano. No, they don't die. Based on our research, they experience intense emotional recall. They remember things they've been trying to forget for a long time. What kind of things? We think they remember the worlds they've destroyed, the people they've killed. We think your music will make them feel guilty about what they've done. Danny played a few soft chords thinking. So I'm not really fighting them. I'm trying to make them remember their conscience. Exactly, Kevin said. The Vorthic have turned themselves into perfect killing machines by suppressing their ability to feel guilt or sadness. Your music breaks through that suppression. One of the engineers, a woman named Carol Webb, finished connecting cables to the piano. Everything's ready on our end. When you play, the sound will be picked up by these sensors and transmitted through our communications array. Danny looked around the room. How long do I need to play? We're not sure, Lisa admitted. In our lab tests, the effect lasted between 20 minutes and 2 hours. But we've never tested it on this scale before. Captain Jake Morrison entered the room. His face was serious, but Danny could see worry in his eyes. Danny, I need to be honest with you about what we're facing. The Vorthic fleet is less than 12 hours away from the Centauri colonies. If our plan doesn't work, 3 billion people will die. Danny felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders like a heavy coat. 3 billion people. He had played for crowds before, but never for stakes like this. Captain, what if I mess up? What if my music isn't good enough? Jake sat down across from Danny. I've heard you play, Danny. When we were extracting you from Earth, I listened to your broadcasts. Your music made me think of my sister who died on Mars. It made me remember why we're fighting this war. If you can make a soldier like me feel that much, you can make anyone feel it. Lisa pulled up a chair next to Danny. There's something else. You need to understand. The aliens we're fighting, they weren't always killers. We think they used to be artists, maybe even musicians like you. What happened to them? We don't know for sure. But we think something terrible happened to their homeworld, something that made them decide that art and music and beauty were too painful to have. So they destroyed their own culture and became destroyers instead. Danny played a soft sad melody. They're running from their feelings. Yes, and they've been running for so long that they've forgotten who they used to be. Your music might remind them. Kevin showed Danny a brain scan on his tablet. Look at this. When we played recordings of your Earth broadcast to captured Vorthic neural tissue, the memory centers lit up like fireworks. But not just any memories. Specifically, memories associated with loss and regret. Danny studied the colorful brain scan. You're saying my sad songs make them remember sad things? Your honest songs make them remember honest things, Lisa corrected. Danny, the reason your music works is not because it's technically perfect. It works because you put your whole heart into it. When you play about loss, they hear real loss. When you play about love, they hear real love. Danny nodded slowly. I understand. But what if making them remember just makes them angrier? What if they attack us harder because we made them feel bad? Jake leaned forward. That's a risk we have to take. Right now, they're destroying everything human in the galaxy. We can't get much worse off than we already are. An alarm sounded throughout the ship. Ryan Cooper's voice came over the intercom. All hands, this is communications. We've just received word that the Vorthic fleet has arrived at the edge of the Centauri system. Estimated time to attack position is 8 hours. Danny felt his stomach drop. 8 hours. Danny, Lisa said, we need to run some tests with the communication array. We need to make sure everything works before we reach the battle zone. Danny placed his hands on the keys. What should I play? Play what you feel, Jake said. Play what it's like to be human. Danny closed his eyes and began to play. The song that came out was everything he had experienced in the past few months. It was the sadness of watching Earth die. It was the loneliness of playing an empty subway. Tunnels. It was the fear of facing an enemy that wanted to destroy everything he loved. But it was also hope. It was the kindness of the crew who had rescued him. It was the chance to fight back instead of just running away. It was the possibility that even enemies could remember how to feel. As Danny played, he noticed that the crew members in the room had stopped what they were doing to listen. Carol Webb had tears in her eyes. Kevin was staring at the floor with a distant expression. Even Captain Morrison, who Danny suspected didn't cry often, was wiping his eyes. That's it, Lisa whispered. That's exactly what we need. Danny finished, but saw him and looked around the room. How do you know it will work on the aliens if it only makes humans cry? Because, Lisa said, we think the aliens used to be just like us. Deep down, underneath all that anger and violence, they still are. Danny nodded and placed his hands back on the keys. He had 8 hours to prepare for the most important concert of his life. A concert that would either save humanity or be the last song anyone ever heard. The bridge of the Harmony was darker than usual. Captain Jake Morrison had ordered the lights dim so the crew could see the tactical displays better. On the main screen, 40 red dots moved toward the blue dots that represented human colonies. In the Centauri system, Vorthic Fleet is now within weapons range of Centauri Prime, reported Lieutenant Ryan Cooper. His voice was steady, but Jake could see sweat on his forehead. They'll begin their attack in 90 minutes. Jake looked around his bridge crew. Colonel Betty Davis stood at the weapons console, even though their ship only had defensive guns. Dr. Lisa Chun monitored the alien brain activity sensors they had installed. Dr. Kevin Park watched medical readouts that would tell them if their plan was working. Distance to Vorthic Fleet? Jake asked. 1 light minute in closing, Ryan said. We're within broadcast range. Jake pressed the intercom button. Danny, are you ready? Danny's voice came back immediately. As ready as I'll ever be, Captain. Jake could hear the nervousness in Danny's voice, but also something else. Determination. The street musician who had refused to leave Earth was now their only hope for victory. All stations, this is Captain Morrison. Operation Harmony is now active. Dr. Chun began monitoring alien neural activity. Lisa's fingers flew over her controls. Neural sensors are online. I'm reading normal Vorthic brain patterns from all 40 ships. They're focused and aggressive, typical pre-battle state. On the tactical screen, the Vorthic fleet moved into attack formation. Their ships were dark triangular shapes that looked like sharks made of metal. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a city. Centauri Defense Force is moving to intercept. Colonel Davis reported. 12 human ships against 40 alien vessels. They don't stand a chance. Jake watched the display and felt sick. Those 12 ships contained thousands of human sailors and soldiers. Good people who were about to die protecting the colonies behind them. Danny, Jake said into the intercom, it's time. In the music room 3 decks below, Danny Rodriguez sat at the beautiful black piano. His hands were shaking slightly, but his mind was clear. Around him, the room hummed with electronic equipment. Cables ran from the piano to computers that would broadcast his music across space to an alien fleet. Danny thought about everyone he had lost. His parents who had died in the early days of the alien invasion. His friends from the streets of New York scattered to other worlds or killed in the fighting. His sister Maria, who had been living on Europa when the Vorthic attacked that moon. But he also thought about everyone he could still save. The 3 billion people in the Centauri colonies. The scattered human settlements throughout the galaxy. Children who deserved to grow up without fear of alien attacks. Danny placed his hands on the keys and began to play. The song started soft and slow, like a conversation between old friends. Danny played the melody he had written in the subway tunnels, the one about missing people who were gone forever. But now the song carried new weight. It wasn't just about his personal losses anymore. It was about humanity's struggle to survive. On the bridge, Lisa watched her instruments with growing excitement. Captain, I'm detecting changes in Vorthic neural activity. The music is reaching their ships. What kind of changes? Jake asked. Memory centers are beginning to activate. Emotional suppression systems are starting to break down. Lisa's voice rose with excitement. It's working, Captain. The music is getting through their mental defenses. Jake looked at the tactical display. The Vorthic fleet was still moving toward the human colonies, but something was different. Their formation was becoming less organized. Some ships were slowing down. Danny's music grew stronger. He played about hope and despair, about love and loss, about the terrible beauty of being alive in a universe that could be both wonderful and cruel. His fingers moved across the keys like he was painting with sound, creating pictures of every human emotion. Multiple Vorthic ships are dropping out of formation, Ryan reported. Their engine signatures are fluctuating. On the alien ships, Something unprecedented was happening. Vortic warriors who had spent decades suppressing their emotions suddenly found themselves remembering things they had tried to forget. They remembered their homeworld before it was destroyed. They remembered the music their people used to make before they became killers. Commander Vek of the Vortic flagship felt tears on his face for the first time in 50 years. The human music had unlocked memories of his daughter, who had died when their homeworld burned. He remembered her singing in their garden, her voice like silver bells in the morning air. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Vortic soldiers dropped their weapons and clutched their heads as suppressed memories flooded back. They remembered lovers and children and parents, all lost in the endless wars they had fought across the galaxy. 37 Vortic ships have stopped their advance, Colonel Davis reported with amazement. Their weapons are powering down. Danny's music reached a crescendo. He played with everything he had, pouring his soul into the piano keys. The song became a cry of anguish for everyone who had ever loved someone they couldn't save. It became a prayer for everyone who had ever hoped for something better. It became a lullaby for everyone who had ever felt alone in the dark. Lisa watched her instruments in wonder. Captain, the neural activity readings are off the charts. The Vortic aren't just remembering their losses. They're remembering what it felt like to love. On the Vortic flagship, Commander Vek opened a communication channel to his fleet. All ships, cease your attack. Stand down immediately. His voice was thick with emotions he hadn't felt in decades. Commander, what are our orders? Asked his second in command, who was also weeping. Our orders are to remember who we used to be, Vek said, before we became monsters. Jake watched in amazement as the entire Vortic fleet stopped moving. The dark triangular ships that had terrorized the galaxy for decades now drifted helplessly in space, their crews overwhelmed by the return of their humanity. 3 ships are still advancing, Ryan warned. They must have better mental shielding. Danny heard the warning through his earpiece but didn't stop playing. If anything, he played harder, putting even more emotion into his music. He thought about his sister Maria, about how she used to dance when he played piano in their tiny apartment. He played for her memory and for everyone else who deserved to be remembered. The last 3 Vortic ships slowed, then stopped. Their crews finally succumbed to the emotional flood that Danny's music had unleashed. All Vortic ships have ceased their attack, Colonel Davis announced. The Centauri colonies are safe. Danny finished his song with a single perfect note that seemed to hang in the air forever. Then he lifted his hands from the keys and sat back, exhausted. Jake's voice came through the intercom. Danny, you did it. You stopped them all. Danny looked at his hands, still shaking from the intensity of his performance. Captain, I think I understand now why the aliens became killers. Sometimes it's easier to destroy beauty than to face how much losing it hurts. But you helped them choose differently, Lisa's voice added. You showed them that feeling pain is better than feeling nothing at all. Danny stood up from the piano bench and walked to the small window in the music room. Outside, he could see the Vortic fleet drifting silently in space. For the first time in decades, they had stopped running from their hearts. The performance was over, but Danny knew the real work was just beginning. 3 days had passed since Danny Rodriguez played the song that stopped the war. The Vortic fleet still drifted in space near the Centauri colonies, but now they were no longer enemies. They were broken souls trying to remember how to be whole. Again, Dock Captain Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the Harmony, watching a sight no human had ever seen before. Vortic shuttles moved peacefully between the alien ships and the human colonies. Some carried Vortic commanders who wanted to talk. Others carried supplies that the aliens were offering as gifts to the people they had almost destroyed. It's incredible, said Dr. Lisa Chun, joining Jake at the window. 3 days ago, they were trying to kill us all. Now they're asking for our help. Jake nodded. Commander Deck wants to meet with Danny again today. He says his people need to hear more music to help them process their memories. How is Danny handling all this? Jake smiled. Better than I expected. Yesterday, He played for a group of Vorthek, soldiers who hadn't spoken in 20 years. By the end of his concert, they were crying and trying to sing along. In the music room, Danny sat at his piano, but he wasn't alone. Across from him sat Commander Dek, the leader of the Vorthek fleet. Dek was tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. His face was designed for war with sharp angles and no expression. But now those black eyes were filled with tears. "Play the song again," Dek asked in his deep, rough voice. "The one about losing someone you love." Danny's fingers found the keys. He played the melody that had stopped the fleet 3 days ago. But now it sounded different. It was gentler, more hopeful. Instead of a cry of despair, it was becoming a song of healing. As Danny played, Dek closed his eyes and spoke. "Her name was Kira. She was my daughter. She had a voice like silver wind chimes. When our world burned, I tried to save her, but I was too late." Danny continued playing, letting the music carry Dek's words. "What happened to your world?" "We destroyed it ourselves," Dek said, his voice barely a whisper. "There was a civil war. Those who loved art and music fought against those who thought such things made us weak. The warriors won, but the victory destroyed everything beautiful we had ever created." Danny played softer, letting the alien commander remember. "The survivors became what we are now. We decided that if we couldn't have beauty, then no one could. We spent 50 years destroying every civilization that reminded us of what we had lost. But you remembered her when you heard my music." "Yes, for the first time in decades, I remembered what it felt like to love someone more than my own life." Vec opened his eyes and looked at Danny. "Your music broke the walls we built around our hearts." Danny finished the song and turned to face Dek completely. "What will you do now?" "I don't know. My people are lost. We've been killers for so long that we've forgotten how to be anything else. Some of my commanders want to go home and try to rebuild our world. Others think we should stay in exile forever." Danny stood up and walked to the window. Outside, more Vorthik shuttles were arriving, carrying aliens who wanted to hear human music. "Commander, can I ask you something?" "Yes." "When Kira was alive, what did she want to be when she grew up?" Dek was quiet for a long moment. "She wanted to be a musician, like the great composers of our world. She said she wanted to write songs that would make people remember how beautiful life could be." Danny smiled. "Then maybe that's your answer." "What do you mean?" "Maybe the way to honor the people you lost isn't to keep destroying. Maybe it's to help create the kind of world they would have wanted to live in." Vex stared at Danny with his large black eyes. "You think we could learn to create again instead of destroy?" "I think you still remember how. You just need practice." Dr. Lisa Chun entered the music room, carrying her tablet. "Danny, Commander Dek, I have news from Earth. The atmospheric cleaning systems are working faster than expected. The poison clouds are breaking up." Danny felt his heart jump. "Earth is healing?" "Yes. The Vorthik have shared their environmental restoration technology with us. Apparently they've had to clean up a lot of worlds they've damaged over the years." Lisa looked at Dek. "Commander, your people's help has been invaluable." Dek bowed his head. "It is the least we can do. We have much to make up for." "Captain!" Jake Morrison's voice came over the intercom. "Danny, could you come to the bridge, please? We have a transmission from Earth you need to see." Danny and his companions made their way to the bridge. On the main screen, Admiral Hayes appeared, but he looked different. Instead of the grim, tired expression he had worn for months, he was smiling. "Danny Rodriguez, the entire human race owes you a debt we can never repay. Your music didn't just stop the Vorthik fleet. It started something bigger." "What do you mean, Admiral?" "We're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Vorthik fleets everywhere have stopped their attacks. They're reaching out to the species they've been fighting, offering to make peace. Your concert has sparked a galactic ceasefire." Danny felt overwhelmed. "I just played piano, Admiral. I didn't mean to change the whole galaxy. Sometimes the Smallest actions have the biggest consequences, Admiral Hayes said. Danny, I have a question for you. Earth is healing, but it will take years to fully recover. Would you consider staying in space for a while? There are a lot of worlds that could use your music. Danny looked around the bridge at the faces of his friends. Jake, who had risked everything to rescue him from Earth. Lisa, who had figured out how music could touch alien minds. Commander Beck, who was learning to feel again after decades of numbness. Admiral, I've been thinking about that. One spent years playing on street corners for a few dollars and the hope that someone would listen. Now I have the chance to play for entire civilizations. How could I say no? 6 months later, Danny stood on the observation deck of the Harmony, now renamed the Harmony of Worlds. Through the window, he could see a beautiful sight. Ships from a dozen different species floated peacefully in space around a space station. Where the first intergalactic music festival was about to begin, human musicians would play alongside Vortic composers, who were rediscovering their artistic heritage. Centauri singers would harmonize with the crystal-voiced beings from the Andromeda colonies. Species that had been enemies for centuries would create beauty together. Commander Deck approached Danny at the window. The alien leader looked different. Now, the harsh lines of his face had softened, and his eyes held warmth instead of emptiness. Danny, my daughter Kira would have loved this, Deck said. A festival where every species in the galaxy comes together to share their music. Danny smiled. I think she would have. And Commander, I think she would be proud of what you've become. What have I become? Someone who chose love over revenge. Someone who decided to build instead of destroy. Danny placed his hand on Deck's shoulder. Someone who remembered that the people we love never really leave us as long as we carry their dreams forward. Deck nodded, tears in his black eyes. She is still with me when I hear music. Your song helped me understand that. Danny looked out at the gathering ships and felt a deep sense of peace. He had started as a street musician playing for tips in New York City. Now he was helping to heal a galaxy with the same gift he had always possessed, the ability to make others feel what it meant to love and be loved. Tomorrow, the festival would begin, and Danny would play his piano for an audience of millions. But tonight, he was content to stand at the window and watch former enemies become friends. All because someone had remembered that music was the language every heart could understand. The war was over. The healing had begun. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, the memory of everyone they had loved lived on in every note they played.